Let's escape the hustle and bustle of city life and take in the serenity of the majestic Allegheny Mountains of West Virginia. Here you'll find some of the finest scenery in America: mountains, forests, lakes, and the trains of the wonderful Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Railroad.
Here in the mountains of West Virginia, you'll find some of the most breathtaking scenery in America. Hundreds of thousands of acres of unspoiled wilderness. Waterfalls cascade in densely forested canyons. Some of the most isolated and picturesque views you'll ever encounter. Durbin is nestled in the Allegheny Mountain Range in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. Railroad history is in the bloodline of this town.
The railroad really made the major impact 100 years ago in 1902 when the first train came to town. It came here to the depot. It was a steam engine, of course, and the town shifted back around from where the Western Maryland is now to where the main street is here. And so the railroad had first dibs and the town revolved around the railroad.
For years, the railroad gave life to this town. But after nearly a century, it was the town, with financial assistance from the state, that would breathe new life into the abandoned line of a dying railroad.
And it was determined that a small tourist operation could be started here if somebody was interested. And my wife Kathy and I decided that we might be interested. So as ex-truck drivers, we sold our truck and formed the Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Railroad Incorporated. About half of the businesses in town are the original stockholders.
The excursion trains of the Durbin and Greenbrier Valley Railroad offer you some absolutely wonderful ways to see what West Virginia has to offer. Depending on how much time you have, the Durbin and Greenbrier offers you a number of options. The Durbin Rocket allows you to ease on down into the upper reaches of the Greenbrier River from the base of Cheat Mountain. The train is powered by Old No. 3, a nearly 100-year-old 55-ton Climax steam locomotive. It's one of the few operating geared Climax logging locomotives which remain.
We could start with our steam locomotive, Climax No. 3. Climax is the name of the company that built it in Corey, Pennsylvania. They went out of business in 1929. They built geared logging locomotives as these would be considered, let's say, the Volkswagen of geared logging locomotives, as opposed to the Shays, which would be the Cadillacs. And so a lot of operations bought them that were low-cost and low-budget operations, one of which was Moore Keppel Company, located over the mountains in West Virginia, Elmore, West Virginia. And our Climax served there for about 60 years. We recovered it from a collection in Connecticut and put it back in service. It's one of, right now, 2 that operate. There's a possibility of maybe 5 that would operate in the world at any given time. And there's about 20 of them left. So there's not too many of them that are remaining in the world.
Old No. 3 rolls along the free-flowing Greenbrier, and she'll cover the 10-mile trip in about 2 hours. Now, the Cheat Mountain Salamander is just plain fun. It covers 80 miles on 2 routes without ever leaving its wilderness home. It rolls on the highest mainline track east of the Mississippi. You'll ride through areas of extreme isolation. You'll bend around some of the tightest mainline curves in the United States. You'll see the beautiful and inspirational high falls of Cheat Mountain, hidden deep in the river valley, and one of West Virginia's most magnificent waterfalls. All this while riding a custom-built and self-propelled rail car. It's a replica of a 1922 Edwards Railway motor car, built just for this rugged mountain service.
Salamander is a reproduction of an Edwards motorized rail car. They used them in small communities where they didn't have enough people to warrant a full-time passenger train, but people wanted to travel from town to town. Roads weren't too well established. Rail was a better way to travel, and it was basically a bus that runs on the railroad tracks.
The smooth riding and mountain climbing new Tigard Flyer offers longer trips, some lasting nearly 8 hours. You journey deep into the wilderness for a pampered, stylish, and climate-controlled ride. On the agenda are wonderful views of deep canyons, dense forests, and the Tigard Valley River.
The new Tigard Flyer is another segment of our tourist operation that operates on another piece of the West Virginia Central. It operates on about 75 miles of that line, and it's a streamlined, old-fashioned Pullman car passenger train. We feel like that we only exist because of the goodwill of the people of West Virginia. These are lines that are owned by the state of West Virginia. and some of the funding on the West Virginia Central to keep the lines up comes from the state legislature. And so this state is able to do things that the surrounding states should be doing but aren't. So West Virginia, in a way, is benefiting because of its own attitude toward rail lines and because of the people's attitude toward having something like this and preserving rail lines. There's a tremendous amount of goodwill that we've enjoyed doing this. And so it becomes a fun thing to do. We have 290 stockholders who are all local people, and they've invested in a railroad that they knew they'd never get a dollar out of, but yes, last year we paid a dividend for the first time, and it looks like we're going to do the same thing again. So something that looked like it was just a lark has turned into a legitimate enterprise, and it has a bright future.
Every year, tens of thousands of visitors make the trek here to ride the trains of the Durbin and Greenbrier. After a visit, West Virginia might just feel like home, or at least you'll wish it was home. But one thing is for sure, when you see beauty like this, you'll definitely want to come back.